What happened to that kid? I'm not asking to hurt you. I'm asking because somebody in this room, somebody watching this right now, has been carrying a weight that they don't even have a name for. You've been working. You've been trying. You've been doing what you were told to do. Go to school. Go to school. Get a job. Save a little. Don't spend too much. And yet, somehow, at the end of every single month, you look at your bank account and you feel that same hollow feeling in your chest. That quiet shame. That silent panic. That voice in the back of your head that whispers, maybe this is just how my life is supposed to be. Dot, I am here today to look you in the eye and tell you that voice is lying to you. But here's what nobody tells you. The reason you're still stuck isn't because you're lazy. It isn't because you're not smart enough. It isn't because the economy is against you, although it can be. It isn't because you didn't get the right breaks. The reason most people stay poor, the reason most people stay financially suffocated their entire lives is because of three deeply embedded, culturally reinforced, psychologically dangerous habits that nobody ever sat them down and explained. Three habits so sneaky, so silent, so normalized that you probably don't even see them as habits. You see them as personality, you see them as just the way things are. You see them as your story, Dot. And today we're going to burn that story down. Dot, not because I want to embarrass you, not because I want to shame you, but because I have sat where you are sitting. I have felt what you are feeling. And I know what it costs a human being to live a life that is smaller than the one they were built for. Let me take you somewhere with me. Come with me for a moment. For a moment. I grew up watching my father leave the house every single morning at 5:30. 5:30 in the morning, before the sun even had the courage to come up. He would put on his work boots in the dark, and I used to peek through the crack in my bedroom door just to watch him. Him. He never knew I was watching. He'd lace those boots up slowly, one eyelid at a time, and sometimes he'd just sit there for a second with his hands on his knees. Just sit there. And even as a young child, even without the vocabulary to describe it, I understood what I was witnessing. I was watching a man carrying something too heavy for one person to carry it out. My father worked hard, harder than almost any man I have ever met. He gave everything he had to that job, to that paycheck, to us, and yet money was always tight. Always, there was always a bill that was a little too big. Always a month that was a little too short. Always a conversation that would stop the moment I walked into the room that I knew was about money. And I told myself, when I grow up, I'm going to be different. I'm going to figure out what my father never got to figure out. I'm going to break this cycle. But you know what happened? I grew up and I became my father. Not because I wanted to. Not because I didn't try. But because nobody had ever shown either one of us the invisible prison we were living in. Nobody had ever pointed at the habits. Nobody had named the patterns. Nobody had said, hey, this thing you're doing, this thing that feels completely normal to you, this thing your parents did and their parents did before them, this thing right here, this is the reason. This is why the chain never breaks. Today, I'm going to name them. All three of them. And I want you to sit with each one. Because somewhere in here, at least one of them is going to feel uncomfortably familiar. Somewhere in here, at least one of them is going to feel like I've been reading your diary. And when that happens, I don't want you to get defensive. I want you to get curious, because curiosity is the first step to transformation. Defensiveness is just the ego protecting the prison. Let's talk about the first dangerous habit. The first habit that keeps people poor forever is this: trading time for money and calling it security. Now I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, well, what's wrong with working? Working is honorable. Working hard is a virtue. And you are absolutely right. There is nothing wrong with hard work. Hard work is the foundation of everything. But there is a profound and devastating difference between hard work and the belief that your time is your most sellable asset. Let me explain what I mean. From the moment we are children, we are taught a very specific model of how money works. You go somewhere, you do something for someone, they give you money for the hours you spend. That's it. That is the entire model. You rent your time, they pay for the rent. And we are told this is the safe path. This is the responsible path. This is the respectable path. Get a good job with benefits, get a pension. Clock in, clock out. 30 years, gold watch, done. And for a certain era, in a certain kind of economy, that model worked. It worked for a generation. Maybe two, but something happened. The world changed. The economy evolved. The rules of money were quietly, fundamentally rewritten. And most people were never told, here is the brutal mathematical truth about trading time for money. Your time is finite. You have 24 hours in a day. You sleep for some of them. You need to eat and exist for some of them. And maybe you have 8 to 10 hours you can realistically sell. That is your ceiling. That is the absolute maximum output of a human being operating on a time for money model. And no matter how hard you work, no matter how many overtime hours you log, no matter how many side shifts you pick up, you cannot break through that ceiling because you cannot manufacture more time. You cannot create a 25th hour. Rich people don't get paid for their time. Let me say that again because I need it to land. Wealthy people do not primarily get paid for their time. They get paid for their value, their systems, their ideas, their assets, the things they've built that continue to generate income, whether they are awake or asleep. A song that was written 20 years ago still earns royalties. A book that was finished in a year still sells copies decades later. A business system properly built generates revenue on a Sunday morning when the owner is eating breakfast with their children. This is not a secret that wealthy people are hiding from you. It is a fundamental principle of how wealth is actually built. But we weren't taught this in school. In school, they taught us to be good employees. And I'm not angry at the school system today. That's a different speech. But I need you to understand that the education you received was designed to prepare you to participate in an economy, not to own a piece of it. Now here is where the habit becomes dangerous. Because it's not just that people trade time for money. The habit is that they cling to it. They cling to the familiar certainty of the paycheck, the way a drowning person clings to a piece of driftwood, even when the driftwood is sinking. They say, at least I know this money is coming. At least it's guaranteed. And I understand that. I understand that. I understand the terror of uncertainty. I understand that when you have a family, when you have rent due, when you have children who need shoes, the idea of giving up guaranteed income for some dream feels not just irresponsible but actively reckless. But here's what I want to ask you. Is it really guaranteed? Is that paycheck really as safe as it feels? I want to tell you about a man named Marcus. Marcus worked for a telecommunications company for 19 years. 19 years? He was a loyal, dedicated, hardworking employee. He knew every system, every process, every procedure. He trained new employees. He covered for his manager when his manager was out. He gave that company the best years of his life, the most energetic, most capable, most creative years of his life. And one Tuesday morning, he came in to find a meeting invitation from her in his inbox. And in that meeting, they handed him a folder and told him that his position was being eliminated due to organizational restructuring. 19 years. Gone. In 45 minutes. And what did Marcus have to show for 19 years of trading his time? A small severance package, a LinkedIn profile that needed updating, and the horrifying realization that he had spent the best 2 decades of his life building equity for someone else's dream while building almost nothing of his own. Marcus was not lazy. Marcus was not stupid. Marcus was following the script he'd been given. And the script failed him. How many Marcuses are in this room right now? How many people are one corporate restructuring, one economic downturn, one new CEO, one automation upgrade away from losing everything they've built? And more importantly, if you lost your job tomorrow, and I'm not wishing that on you, but if you did, how long could you survive? How many months? How many weeks? That answer. That number. That is your actual financial security, not the job. The number, the habit of trading time for money isn't just limiting, it's a trap. Because every year you spend in it is a year you are not spending building something that could outlast you. Something that could work while you sleep. Something that could give your children a different starting point than the one you were given. I'm not telling you to quit your job tomorrow. I want to be very clear about that. I'm telling you to stop seeing your job as the destination. Start seeing it as the fuel for the journey. Ehin. Use what you earn to learn. Use what you earn to invest. Use what you earn to build slowly, imperfectly, messily, one brick at a time, something that is yours. Because the moment you stop building someone else's dream exclusively and start putting even 10% of your energy into your own, something shifts. Something inside you wakes up. And that waking up, that is where your story starts to change. But here's the thing about the first habit. It connects directly, painfully, intimately to the second one. The second dangerous habit that keeps people poor forever is this: spending to feel rich instead of investing to become rich. Oh, I see some of you shift in your seats. Good. That means it's working. Two people? Hmm? Same city, same age, same income. Let's call them David and Sandra. David and Sandra both earn the same salary. Both are reasonably intelligent, reasonably hardworking people, but they make radically different choices with the money that comes through their hands. Every time David gets a raise, he upgrades his lifestyle. New car, nicer apartment, a better restaurants, latest phone. Not because he needs these things, but because these things feel like evidence. Evidence that he's doing well. Evidence that he's making progress. Evidence that his hard work is paying off. Every purchase is a signal to the world and to himself that he has arrived. And in the short term, it feels incredible. The dopamine hit of a new purchase is real. The social validation of visible success is real. Real. The comfort of surrounding yourself with nice things after a childhood of scarcity is real. But 2 years pass, 5 years pass, 10 years pass, 10 years pass, and David has an impressive wardrobe and a beautiful car and almost nothing in savings. Because every time money came in, it went right back out, wearing a different costume. Sandra does something different. Sandra, when she gets a raise, she increases her investment before she touches the extra money. She puts it away before her lifestyle can absorb it. Her car is fine, not flashy. Not flashy. Her apartment is comfortable, not extravagant. When she wants something, she waits, she thinks, she asks herself one question, and we'll get to that question in a moment. And 10 years down the road, Sandra has built something quiet, invisible to the outside world, but structurally powerful. She has built assets. She has built a foundation. She has built a future that doesn't depend entirely on her continuing to show up and trade her time. Now here is the painful, uncomfortable part of this story. David looks richer than Sandra. If you met them both at a party, you would probably think David was the more successful one. His watch is better. His clothes are better. His car is better. And this is the cruelest trick that consumer culture plays on all of us. It has convinced us that looking wealthy and being wealthy are the same thing. It has convinced us that the symbols of wealth are the substance of wealth, but they're not. They are not. They are the opposite. Every luxury car purchased on a payment plan, every designer item bought on a credit card, every expensive holiday financed through debt, these are not signs of wealth. They are signs of wealth being actively destroyed. Because when you spend money you don't have on things that lose value the moment you acquire them, you are not building, you are dismantling, you are eating the seed corn, you are burning the wood you need to build the house in order to stay warm for one night. And I understand why we do this. I want to be gentle here because this habit, this specific habit, has deep, deep roots that go beyond simple financial ignorance. For many of us, especially those of us who grew up with very little, spending is emotional. Spending is self-worth. When you grew up watching your parents struggle, when you grew up being the kid with the cheaper shoes, when you grew up feeling the shame of scarcity, money becomes more than a tool. It becomes a healer. It becomes a healer. It becomes a way to finally prove to yourself and to everyone who doubted you that you made it. And every purchase becomes a tiny act of defiance against the poverty of your childhood. Dot, I get it. I really genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, get it. Dot, I need to say something that might be difficult to hear. Spending money to heal emotional wounds doesn't heal them. It postpones them. And while you're postponing them, it keeps you poor. Dot. The question Sandra asks herself, that question I mentioned is this: is this purchase bringing me closer to freedom or further away from it? Not is this purchase something I deserve. Not is this purchase something I've earned. Not is this purchase something my neighbor has. Not is this purchase going to make me feel good today. The question is about freedom, because freedom is the real goal. Not stuff. Freedom, unfreedom, financial freedom is not built in one dramatic moment. It's not built in one investment, one windfall, one lucky break. It is built in the accumulation of thousands of small decisions, the daily, boring, unsexy decision to choose the future version of yourself over the present comfort. To say, not yet, not today, the future me needs this more than the present me does. I want to talk about something called the wealth gap and the display gap. The wealth gap is the difference between what people actually have and what they appear to have. In modern consumer society, these two numbers are almost never the same, and the dangerous direction of the gap matters enormously. For most people, the display gap is positive. They appear to have more than they actually have. They are projecting wealth they don't possess. And every month, they are spending real money to maintain that projection. The truly wealthy often have a negative display gap. They have more than they appear to have. They are not performing wealth. They are quietly, consistently, unglamorously accumulating it. The famous study of millionaires in America found that the majority of people with over $1 million in assets did not live in the most expensive neighborhoods, did not drive the most expensive cars, did not wear the most expensive clothes. They lived below their means consistently over long periods of time and let the compound effect do its quiet, invisible, powerful work. Compound interest. Albert Einstein, whether or not he actually said it, was credited with calling compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. And the math is extraordinary when you actually sit with it. Money invested and allowed to grow doesn't just add, it multiplies. And then it multiplies the multiplication. A modest investment started young, in a consistent, disciplined way given enough time, can create generational change. But the prerequisite, the absolute non-negotiable entry ticket, is that the money has to be available to invest. It has to not have been spent on things that are sitting in a landfill or losing value in a driveway. Every dollar you spend on a liability is a dollar that is no longer available to build an asset. Every single dollar. Now, I want to be clear. I am not preaching a life of deprivation. I am not saying you should never enjoy anything, never eat at a nice restaurant, never buy something beautiful. Life is meant to be lived. Joy is real. Pleasure is real. Experience is real. But there is a profound difference between intentional, joyful spending as part of a larger plan and unconscious, emotional, compulsive spending as a substitute for one. Learn to know the difference in yourself. That is not a financial skill. That is a self-awareness skill, and it may be the most valuable one you ever developed. But even if you understand the first two habits, even if you wake up to the time for money trap and start making more conscious spending choices, there is a third habit. And this one is the most dangerous of all. This one operates so far beneath the surface that most people will live their entire lives and never see it, never name it, never know it was there. The third dangerous habit that keeps people poor forever is this: having a scarcity mindset and mistaking it for wisdom. Let me sit with that for a moment. Let it breathe, that scarcity mindset. You've probably heard the term, but I want to take you deeper than the surface level definition. Because the way most people understand scarcity mindset, it's too simple. They think it just means being pessimistic about money or being afraid to spend. And yes, those things are part of it. But scarcity mindset goes so much further than that. It is a fundamental, bone-deep, often invisible worldview about the nature of possibility itself. People with a scarcity mindset believe, at a level that is often beneath conscious awareness, that there is only so much good in the world to go around, that resources are fundamentally limited, that if someone else wins, that means there is less winning available for you, that playing it safe is always smarter than taking a risk, that good things that happen to other people are somehow a threat or a judgment on your own life, that your current circumstances are more or less your permanent circumstances. And here is why this is so deeply dangerous. Because your mindset is not just a feeling. It is a filter through which you perceive every opportunity, every decision, every possibility in your life. And a scarcity filter will systematically destroy opportunity the moment it appears. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine two people hear about the same investment opportunity, same information, same potential return. The person with the scarcity mindset hears it and thinks, this is probably too good to be true. I'll probably lose the money. I can't afford to lose that money. What if it goes wrong? I'll wait until I know it's definitely safe. I'll wait until more people have tried it. I'll wait. The person with an abundance mindset hears the same thing and thinks, let me research this. Let me understand it. Let me calculate how much risk is acceptable. Let me start small and see. Let me learn that 10 years later, the investment has performed. The abundance mindset person is sitting with returns. The scarcity mindset person is sitting with all the money they never risked. And here's the real cruelty. The scarcity mindset person will look at this outcome and say, see, I knew it. They got lucky. It took a risk and it happened to work out. I could have done that if I'd wanted to, but I'm responsible. I'm careful. I'm smart, and they will have talked themselves directly into a story that protects their ego while locking them deeper into the prison. Because scarcity mindset is self reinforcing. It interprets every missed opportunity as evidence of wisdom. It mistakes fear for discernment. It mistakes paralysis for patience. It mistakes smallness for safety. And every year you live inside it, it becomes more convincing, more elaborate, more decorated with justifications and anecdotes and cautionary tales from other people who also tried nothing and therefore never lost anything and therefore never lost anything and therefore never gained. I want to talk about where scarcity mindset comes from because I think this matters enormously for how we heal a taught scarcity mindset. In most cases, is learned. It is transmitted, it is passed down, parent to child, generation to generation, the way an heirloom is passed down. Except instead of something beautiful, it's a chain. If you grew up in a household where money was always a source of stress and anxiety, where the conversation around money was always fearful, where every financial decision was made from a defensive crouch, where risk was always something to be avoided rather than managed, you did not just learn facts about money. You absorbed a feeling about money. You absorbed a set of unconscious beliefs about what is possible for people like you. Not people like you. That phrase, that devastating phrase, people like us don't do that. That's for other people. That's not how things work in our family. That's not realistic. Be grateful for what you have. Don't get too big for your boot star. How many of you heard some version of those words? How many of you carry them right now in this moment, somewhere in your chest? How many of you, when you get close to a real opportunity, when you get close to a real risk that could change your life, hear a voice that sounds suspiciously like someone you love telling you to be careful, to be realistic, to come back down to earth? I am not here to make you angry at the people who passed this down to you. They were doing what they knew how to do. They were protecting you the only way they knew how, with the tools they had. The people who taught you scarcity were themselves taught scarcity, and their parents before them. This is an inheritance, not a conspiracy. But just because something was given to you with love does not mean you are required to keep it, especially when it's keeping you from the life you were made to live. And here is something I need to say very directly. Scarcity mindset often disguises itself virtue. This is why it's so hard to see. It disguises itself as humility. Oh, I don't need that much. I'm not greedy. I'm modest. It disguises itself as wisdom. I've seen what happened to people who reach too far. I'm realistic. It disguises itself as spirituality. Money is the root of all evil. Wealth corrupts. Rich people are selfish. And I want to address that last one, that spiritual one, direct. Because I've sat in rooms where people who genuinely didn't have enough food in the house were preaching about the evils of wealth. And I want to be as loving and direct as I possibly can here that money is not the root of all evil. The love of money above all things, the worship of money as the highest value, the willingness to destroy other people in the pursuit of money, yes, those things are corrosive and corrupting. But money itself? Money is a tool. Money is a resource. Money is quite simply the ability to direct energy and create outcomes in the world. And I want to ask you, if you had more of it, really genuinely more of it, not the lottery fantasy of infinite wealth, but enough, genuinely enough, what would you do? Would you take better care of your health? Would you give your children better opportunities? Would you support the causes that matter to you? Would you be more generous to the people you love? Would you have the freedom to do work that actually aligns with your gifts rather than just work that pays the bills? If the answer to any of those questions is yes, then wanting more money is not greed. It is love. It is responsibility. It is stewardship. It is the recognition that you have people depending on you and a life to build and a contribution to make, and you need resources to do all of those things. The richest, most generous, most impactful people in human history did not build that impact by staying small. They built it by growing big enough to have something significant to give. Now I want to talk about what shifting your mindset actually looks like in practice. Because I'm tired of motivational content that says, believe in yourself and calls it a day. That's not enough. That's wallpaper over a crumbling wall. Real mindset work is specific, daily, uncomfortable. And it requires you to catch yourself in the moment when the old pattern is activated. It requires you to develop what I call the pause. The pause is the moment between stimulus and response where transformation lives. When an opportunity comes up and you feel the familiar constriction in your chest, the familiar pulling back, the familiar voice of doubt, the pause is the moment when you can choose to examine that feeling rather than obey it. You ask yourself, is this fear based on a real current rational risk? Or is this the echo of something I was taught? Is this wisdom or is this programming? Is this discernment or is this just the scarcity reflex? Sometimes it is genuine wisdom. Sometimes an opportunity is genuinely too risky, too uncertain, too misaligned with where you are. But the point is that you're making a choice based on present tense analysis, not past tense fear. And over time, as you practice this pause, as you develop the habit of examining rather than obeying the scarcity reflex, something extraordinary begins to happen. Your perception begins to change. You start seeing opportunities where before you only saw threats. You start seeing possibilities where before you only saw obstacles. Not because the world has changed, but because the filter you're looking through has changed. The world has always been full of opportunity. It did not start being full of opportunity when wealthy people decided to see it that way. It was always full of opportunity. But you can only act on what you can see. And you can only see what your mindset allows you to perceive. I want to tell you about a woman named Amara. Amara grew up in a small town where the consensus was that success happened to people from other places, people from the city, people with connections, people with the right last names. She heard this her whole childhood. She internalized it the way children always do, completely, without question. The way they learn to walk, just absorbing the rules of the world as they are presented. And so Amara, as a young adult, made safe choices. She took the safe job. She stayed in the safe town. She dated the safe person. She had a safe, small, suffocating life. And every night she went to bed with this dull ache in the center of her chest that she couldn't fully explain. This sense of something unnamed, something unspent, something that wanted very much to exist but couldn't find the opening. Until one day, in her early 30s, she read something, a single sentence. And I want to share it with you because it changed her life and I believe it has the power to change yours. The sentence was this: your comfort zone is not the same as your safety zone. Read that again. Your comfort zone is not the same as your safety zone. What is comfortable is not what is safe. What is familiar is not what is secure. The thing that feels risky, the step outside the boundary, the hand extended toward the unknown, that is not the danger. The real danger, the danger that will consume decades of your life without making a sound, is staying in the comfort zone of smallness and calling it contentment. Amara read that sentence and something cracked open. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't a lightning bolt, it was quiet. Like a window being open in a room that had been sealed for a very long time. And she began slowly, imperfectly, with enormous amounts of fear to take different steps, to make different choices, not because she had suddenly become fearless, but because she had decided that the cost of staying safe was higher than the cost of being afraid. Today, Amara runs a business that employs people from her hometown. Today, she is building something that will outlast her. Today, she is the evidence that changes the consensus of a town that once told her that success happened to other people. She did not become Amara the success story. She became Amara the person who stopped letting her mindset write her story for her. And that right there is the work. Not the investment strategy, not the financial product, not the side hustle or the crypto or the real estate deal. Those things matter. Those things can help. But they are all downstream of the fundamental question of who you believe you are and what you believe is possible for someone like you. Because let me tell you something I have observed in years of studying success and failure, in years of my own stumbling and recovering and starting again. Not once seen a person with genuine abundance mindset. A person who truly believed in their bones that they were capable and that opportunity was available and that the future could be different from the past. I have never seen that person stay poor. Not forever. Not because they never struggled. Not because they never failed. But because their mindset would not allow them to stop, would not allow them to accept the small version of their life as the final version. And I have never not once seen a person with a deep entrenched scarcity mindset build lasting wealth. Even if they stumbled into money, they found a way to lose it. Because the mindset always wins. The mindset is always the ceiling. The mindset is always the infrastructure on which everything else is built. And if the infrastructure is built on fear, everything built on top of it will eventually collapse. Now, I want to bring these three habits together. I want you to see how they form a system, because this is important. This is what makes them so hard to escape. Habit 1, trading time for money, keeps you in a cycle of financial ceiling. No matter how hard you work, you cannot earn more than your time allows. And this creates a persistent low-grade financial stress that activates habit 2. Habit 2, spending to feel rich, kicks in as a response to that stress and to the scarcity of your upbringing. It provides temporary emotional relief. It gives you the feeling of abundance without the substance, but it drains the very capital you would need to invest and build. And when the spending doesn't actually solve the deeper problem, when you still feel the same anxiety at the end of the month, it reinforces habit 3. Habit 3, scarcity mindset, looks at the spending and the ceiling and the stress and says, hey, I was right. This is how it is. There isn't enough. It's not worth trying. Better to stay safe, stay small, stay predictable. And the cycle closes and it starts again. And the years pass. This is not a character flaw. This is a system. And you don't escape a system by trying harder within it. You escape a system by naming it, understanding it, and building a different one. Let me talk about how you actually break the cycle. Practically, concretely. You break habit 1 by starting today. Not when you're ready, not when you have more time or more money or more certainty, but today to allocate some small portion of your energy to building something that can outlast the hours you put into it. A skill that compounds. A piece of knowledge that opens doors. A side project that might grow. A small investment that might multiply. It doesn't have to be big. It has to be started. There is a principle that the Chinese proverb captures better than almost anything I've ever read. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. You cannot go back and start earlier, but you can make the decision right now in this moment to start. And 10 years from now, you will look back at this moment and be grateful that you did, or you will look back and wish you had. The choice between those two futures is available to you right now. Only right now. You break habit 2 by developing what I call a future self relationship. Your future self is a real person. They are not hypothetical. They are not a fantasy. They are you in 10 years living with the consequences of the decisions you make today. And the question is, what kind of person do you want to be for that future version of you? Do you want to be the kind of person who ate the seed corn, who spent the capital, who chose the comfortable present at the expense of the powerful future? Or do you want to be the person who made the harder, lonelier, less immediately gratifying choice so that your future self could stand on something solid? Talk to your future self. Seriously. Write them a letter. What are you committing to them? What are you building for them? What are you sacrificing now so that they can live the life that your present self is dreaming about? The present self and the future self need to be in relationship. And right now, for most people, the present self is robbing the future self blind. Every day, every purchase, every avoided investment, every habit of comfort chosen over growth. The present self is looting the future. Stop robbing your future self. They deserve better from you. And to break habit 3, the scarcity mindset, you have to be willing to do something that is genuinely uncomfortable. You have to be willing to audit your beliefs about money, to sit with them, to trace them back, to ask, where did this come from? Is this true? Is this mine, or did I inherit it? Is this wisdom, or is this a wound that I've been calling wisdom? And then you have to expose yourself deliberately, consistently to evidence that contradicts your scarcity story. Because the brain learns through repetition and evidence. And right now, the scarcity mindset has years of repetition and selected evidence on its side. The only way to counterbalance that is to actively, intentionally seek out contradicting evidence. Find people who came from where you came from and went further. Find stories of transformation that match your specific kind of obstacle. It's a big kind of obstacle. Not inspiration porn, not rags to riches fantasies, but real documented, specific examples of people who faced your exact flavor of limitation and broke through it. Because when the brain sees evidence that the story it believes is not universal, something shifts. The grip loosens. The possibility opens. Surround yourself with people who are building, people who are growing, people who talk about opportunity with excitement rather than fear, people who have a relationship with money that is healthy and active and empowered. Because mindset is contagious. Contagious. You cannot spend all your time in environments of scarcity and expect to grow an abundance mindset. Environment is not everything, but it is far more than most people admit. Read, learn, constantly, consistently, hungrily learn about money, about investing, about business, about wealth creation, about the habits of people who have built what you want to build. Not to copy them mindlessly, but to expand your sense of what is possible. Every book you read on this subject is evidence against the story that it's too complicated, too risky, too reserved for people who aren't like you. I want to talk for a moment about failure. Because this speech would be dishonest without it. Everything I've told you today, every principle, every shift, every habit, every transformation, it will require you to risk failing. And I don't want to minimize that. Failure is real. Failure is painful. When you take a risk and it doesn't work, the embarrassment is real. The financial loss is real. The self-doubt is real. The voice that says, I told you so is very, very loud. But I need you to understand something about failure that nobody tells you when you're trying to protect yourself from it. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is a component of success. Failure is the tuition. Failure is the data. Failure is the proof that you were brave enough to try. And built into every failure is the specific information you need to try better next time. Every successful person you admire, every entrepreneur, every investor, every builder, every creator has a failure story. Usually not one, usually many, usually spectacular, embarrassing, costly failures. Failures that made them question everything. Failures that made the people who told them to be realistic look temporarily very wise. But they did not let the failure be the last chapter. They used it as a chapter in the middle. They extracted what it had to teach them, and they kept building. You are allowed to fail. You are not allowed to use failure as a reason to stop. I want to tell you about the most important financial decision I ever made. It was not a successful one. It was a failure. I invested money I didn't really have to spare into a venture that I believed in completely, that I researched carefully, that multiple people I trusted had endorsed, and it failed. Completely. The money was gone. I was not devastated. I was destroyed. I was ashamed. I was hearing the voices of every scarcity-minded person who had ever cautioned me, told me to be careful, told me to stick with what was safe. And for a brief dark period, I thought they were right. But then I did something that changed my relationship with failure forever. Forever. I sat down with a notebook and I wrote down every single thing that experience had taught me. Every mistake, every assumption that had been wrong, every signal I had ignored, every piece of due diligence I should have done but didn't. And what I found was that the failure was not meaningless. The failure was expensive education. And the knowledge I extracted from it, the specific hard-won, painful knowledge, was directly responsible for making my next attempt dramatically better, and the one after that better still. The money I lost in that failure was the price of the wisdom that eventually paid for everything that came after. I would not give it back. Not for anything. Failure is not the enemy of financial future. It is often the architect of it, but only if you approach it as a teacher rather than a judge. Only if you ask what instead of why me. What did this teach me? Instead of why does this keep happening to me? Now I want to talk about something that sits underneath all three habits, something deeper. Something that in my view is the real root, the taproot of financial struggle. It is the question of identity, not who you think you are, not who you tell other people you are. The quiet, deep, pre-verbal sense of who you are. The story you tell yourself in the dark, in the moments between waking and sleeping, about what kind of person you are and what kind of life is available to you. Because every habit is downstream of identity. Every decision is downstream of identity. You don't build the habits of wealth and then become a wealthy person. You decide at the identity level that you are a person who builds wealth, and then the habits follow naturally. This sounds like philosophy. It is actually the most practical thing I'm going to say today. If you see yourself as a poor person who is trying to get rich, you will constantly be fighting against your own identity. Every temptation to spend impulsively, every wave of scarcity,